When you think about opening a company abroad, and specifically in the UK, you think about the advantages compared to Italy. What are the real advantages of having a limited company in the UK? Actually, the people who come to us are inundated with acronyms.
Even the most disparate ones.
Who actually, when they come, don't even know what these acronyms represent. Each acronym represents a tax to be paid, an opolo to be paid to the state. And so we have, in addition to the IMA to be paid, we have the acronym for this, the acronym for this other, the percentage.
Some of them then vary on a regional scale, so to each region there is a different contribution.
That changes from time to time, that you have to necessarily go to an accountant if you don't want to do equal to the declaration and then pay more taxes for getting the declaration wrong. In short, in England there is only one tax. The so-called corporation tax, which as of today is at 19%, but in April, so very shortly, it will drop to 17%, but we'll tell you more. Some people have envisioned the so-called the Singapore scenario, that is, having England become an ultra-tax advantaged nation as Singapore is. So they are also saying to drop the corporation tax to 10%. And from here, very shortly, when the Brexit will finally become final, I say finally because it's getting prolonged, this Brexit really too much security-wise.
Obviously, this will then be subject to another regional scale because it
We've
requires
quite a few of these in the past, and we'd like to,
a lot of councils.
In a little while, to go and view, to scroll through, to get a better look at the page. However,
there had of advantage those videos that were progressive anyway with respect to even the evolving Brexit scenario over the days.
We were easy profits, we said, if we verified the constant daily arrival.
For someone who is in this business and doing this in London, it's pretty easy to be a prophet in life when it comes to a topic like this. Now,
but back to the advantages of having a company are limited in the UK.
The main advantage, apart from the undoubtedly advantageous rate that will go from 19%, which is already a lady rate, to 17%, some are even vaticinating by next year to go down to 15%, if not 13%. Then where the Singapore scenario happens, things will evolve. This rate advantage is matched by other advantages in administrative terms, in structural terms, and also in fiscal terms. Just starting with the fiscal ones. The rate, first of all, is one which is the corporation tax. So there are not all these contributions, as Orestes has already mentioned. Most importantly, there are much less obligations for the entrepreneur in the continuation of his business activity. I give an example. There is no obligation to pay contributions. Now this sounds new to all those who have been entrepreneurs for a long time, and for those who maybe were thinking of opening a startup in Italy and have always been held back by this detail. The social security contribution for the entrepreneur in the City of London when setting up as a company is not compulsory. Of course, where you want it, you have all the possibility to pay yourself through private pensions your contributions, so that between now and when you decide to retire from your entrepreneurial activity, if you ever decide to do so, some entrepreneurs even work all their lives because they can't stand still. If that happens, you, however, have the option of making pension contributions to yourself also in private form. And
this is because Britain, the UK, tries to be at least oppressive, present, possible in the life of the entrepreneur, because it understands and knows that the less oppressive is for the entrepreneur, the more the entrepreneur is left therefore free to work well, the more it brings fiscal benefits to the state, because it grows it economically, employing more people, which people in turn spend, and therefore it's a fiscular economy event.
Then it is also the sublimation of what business is. If you are an entrepreneur, you are responsible for yourself and your choices. If you want to make social security contributions, go ahead. If you don't want to make social security contributions, don't. That is entirely up to you. Another peculiarity lies in the taxes on the employee for he or she who intends to employ people in the UK. The taxes on the employee are calculated to be 1/3 of what you pay on a daily basis in Italy, Right now, I don't know if whoever is watching us has employees or not. From where you have them, you should know very well how much you pay for them each month in terms of taxes to be paid to the Treasury. In England, these taxes are practically lowered. They are about a third of what you pay in Italy for an employee. Another thing to say is the advantages for startups, because of course at the time the company is formed, you don't have to make a tax return at the canonical 12-month deadline. The fiscal year, the financial year runs from April 6 to April 5 of the following year. As for tax returns, however, they are not made on the 12-month scale. As is the case in Italy, there is this incredible opportunity for startups to file returns even after 21 months from the start of their business. Further advantage lies in the fact that the declaration once filed does not involve the disbursement of the amount to be paid to the Treasury all in one lump sum. It gives the possibility, as is also common in many other jurisdictions. I have to recognize that even in Italy it has a greater narrowness, it has a greater severity in Italy. In England you also give the possibility to pay taxes even fractionally. In different varieties, these are just the most basic advantages, the main ones. Then there are of course many others, but we would have to stand here and talk about them for hours, and especially there are some advantages that even if I explain them to you right now, you might not understand until you can put them into practice on a daily basis. A lot of the bureaucracy, I'll give you an example, can be fulfilled online then from the comfort of your home office. However, of course, these are things that you have to see firsthand applied in the real world every day while you're doing your business. You're talking to a supplier, you're making a payment, you're receiving phone calls, you're discussing business. At that juncture, the system also gives you the ability to be able to operate to safeguard your interests in terms of administration. So while you're there with the phone in your hand, maybe on the computer with a click, you can even operate some of those bureaucratic administrative tasks that are essential for the continuation of your corporate life in the legal norms.
Why is this always? Because time has a greater value than money, and there was an illuminating statistic where it ranked Italy one of the most difficult countries. Paradoxically, more difficult in terms of time to pay taxes. They compared it to other countries, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember the time frame very well, but a taxpayer to pay taxes properly in Italy with the burden of all the bureaucracy, so doing the calculations, keeping the receipts, cataloging them, it took but more than a month around this figure of time here. Then if I can find it again, I'll put it on the page. There are several weeks so that in Italy you could make a tax return perfectly. Then without the help of the accountant, it takes even longer. Obviously, if you go to the experienced accountant, industry man who does this from morning to night as a profession, it will take less time than if you did it yourself. Whereas in England, the figure of the accountant is a figure, if we can say, marginal, because you could even do the tax returns yourself. However, the accountant attention at the corporate level is always good to have, because it helps so much also in discharging expenses and so on and so forth. However, it is important that in England, from your comfortable home way to your office, you can pay your taxes in no time. But what I would like you to dwell on, if you are going to open a startup in the UK, without calculating how much this startup can make, we are not necessarily talking about either millionaire startups or startups of a few hundred or tens of thousands. We are simply talking about startups. The advantage is that for more than a year, almost 2 years, the state does not come knocking on your door. Think about it. It means for you to have almost 2 years of absolute freedom to implement your idea and put it into the market and see whether or not the market responds well to this idea of yours. In fact, this is exactly why the state gives you all this time before you declare taxes, to see if you can really be a good taxpayer, useful to the British state or not.
Because basically the philosophy of the state is that the more you earn for the state, the more money goes into circulation, the more the economy grows, and the more the collective benefit. So it's also a different philosophy, different approach to the taxpayer. The taxpayer is a resource for the state to prosper, and for the state to prosper, the taxpayer. So the philosophy of approach is that the state has to lend a hand to the entrepreneur so that the entrepreneur can
realize his benefit, which then, let's say, by direct continuation also guarantees a benefit to the state. It is Ada Smith's principle, more the individual, more the common good.
This entrepreneur is therefore not seen as an enemy to be fleeced. You know the miserly Paperon de Paperon, that Simpson's entrepreneur, what's his name? Mr. Burns. They didn't see him very much, Simpson, but my wife was into it, and so every once in a while I would see that he was this entrepreneur who mistreated the employees. Somewhat this is the view in Italy of the entrepreneur, whereas abroad, rightly, the entrepreneur is seen as a help to the state. Another important tax benefit, however, which we do not address here but will address in the next video, is the opening a VAT number. Is it always necessary and mandatory to open it? When should it be opened? We will look at that in the next video.
At the moment, that's all. A greeting from your money lawyers, and see you next video. Bye.